Low Honors English kids. Just thought I'd give you a little lesson online, a video. I thought about writing something and having you guys read that. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to do a video, and then when I'm done with this video, I want you guys to respond and comment on the things that we're talking about. And what I want to focus on is the first half of the book, The Scarlet Letter, and just some of the things that I wanted you guys to focus on. And if we were in class, I would have talked about some of those things. Now, the first point I want you to understand as you look at this book, it's a character-driven story, not a plot-driven story. So there's not a lot happening as far as events in the first part of the story. And so what are you focusing on? Well, the characters. And the characters are pretty interesting characters. You've got Arthur Dimmesdale, the minister. You've got Hester, the woman caught in adultery, and she's punished in a really unusual way. And then you've got Roger Chillingworth, the husband who comes back after 3 years hoping to find his young, beautiful wife waiting for him, and then he finds her on the scaffold of shame, and she's being punished for adultery, and it wasn't him he wasn't the father of the child that she was holding in her arms. And so he was enraged. And an interesting passage where it describes this rage that he has, then he suppresses it and holds it down. And then throughout the rest of the story, he's a very calculated, calm, you could say, kind of character. And then you've got the minister, Arthur Dimmesdale, the passionate, beloved, young, handsome minister who's Hester's partner in crime, but he won't reveal himself, and she refuses to reveal him. And then the last character is Pearl. This story is a span of like 7 years, and Pearl is an interesting character because we kind of watch her grow up into the age of understanding right and wrong, like when she's age 7. And so it's really interesting to see her grow in the story and the effect of the crime of her parents on her. Now, another important point I want you guys to keep in mind as you're reading the story, and I don't know what your knowledge is of this, but this is a story about Puritanism. And I just finished a book, or about to finish a book, that's dealing with Woodrow Wilson, who was president in the early 1900s, in the teens. And Woodrow Wilson, you could say, was a Puritan, plain and simple. This concept of Puritanism is a unique American idea. Well, it's not unique to America, but the way that it formed here is really unique. And Nathaniel Hawthorne has a unique insight and a perceptive insight into the mindset of Puritanism. And this story is not an American story technically, because it's pre-Constitution, it's colonial America, we're still England. But it's a different kind of setting because these Puritans want to establish not a democracy, but a theocracy, a rule by religion, a rule by God. Theo means God. So it's really interesting to see the role of religion in the story in connection to the enforcement of law. And early in chapter 1 or 2, they talk about where religion and law are identical in this society. And I think that's an important thing that you guys need to focus on in your reading. The third big point that I think you should focus on is the crime. And whether you think it's a crime or not, they did in their society. They thought it was a crime. And the thing I want you to focus on is the response of the Puritan community on the crime as it connected to Hester. They thought they were being lenient in chapter 2 with the punishment that they gave her to wear the Scarlet Letter forever, to live on the outskirts of the community, and to be humiliated on the scaffold. They didn't put her in the stocks, they made her stand, but for a period of like 3 hours, and just to be on the pillory of shame, as they called it. So I want you to focus on the response of society on their crime, and then I want you to focus on and think about their own personal responses and reactions to the crime of adultery. Hester's response, she's kind of forced to come out in the open, but she makes decisions on what she should do with the situation that she's in, and how she's going to react to the decision she made to commit adultery. It's a different response throughout the story as it is initially when she's on the scaffold, where she seems kind of like proud and she wants to throw it back into the face of the Puritans. She kind of evolves as the story goes, and I want you to pay attention to that evolution of Hester. Dimsdale's response. She won't reveal his sin, so he has to do it himself. She puts the responsibility on him, and he won't do it. What effect does that have on him? He still has his job. He still has his reputation. In fact, his reputation gets better. He has all those things going for him, but what effect does the secret have on him and guilt have on him? And then Chillingworth. Chillingworth did not necessarily do anything wrong, but he makes some decisions, and the decisions he makes has to do with revenge, and he focuses on revenge in the story. And I want you to think about the effect of that decision to dedicate oneself to revenge and the bitterness that goes along with wanting to get revenge. What effect does that have on a person as this story progresses? And as you guys finish up the story this week, I want you to focus on that and think about that. And then, what effect does this crime have on Pearl? Now, Hawthorne has some really interesting thoughts on Pearl. It seems like he talks about a spell on her. And as you guys finish up the story, what is the spell that is on Pearl? She seems to be disordered as he describes it. And then as you get to the end of the story, it literally says a spell is broken. When you get to like the chapter 23, a spell is broken at that point. What does that mean when he gets there? Try to understand that. So these are some highlights of things I want you to focus on in the first part of the reading and as you finish up the story this week. All right, talk to you guys later.